Hello all, this is the Owl, or at least it is until my new ID is ready. So, a while back, I promised folks that at 3,000 subscribers, I would do one of those Ask Me Anything or AMA videos. I know some people wanted a stream, but maybe next time, hey. I must say, I was rather surprised, as I expected maybe a dozen questions, but I ended up getting damn near 50. So, what I'm going to do is to split these up into different sections. First, we'll do gaming, then manga and anime, then the channel itself, and finally, personal stuff. Questions were submitted via YouTube, Discord, and even a few via email, but I copied the other ones to Discord for the sake of having everything in one place. Apologies if I miss any. Oh yeah, and as per the poll we did, we'll be using my last few Dead by Daylight matches as a backdrop. It's been a while since I played, so apologies as I'm a bit rusty. I also decided to anonymize these questions, but if you're really curious about who asked what, you can check out the thread on the Discord. Oh, one last thing. There were a few questions that were a bit personal, which I'll just skip. Ditto anything asked about Mrs. Owl directly. She says that she'll do an AMA at like 8,000 or something. Regardless, let's get this done. Question number 1. How you doing? I'm doing okay. Just working hard to try and make this channel viable by the end of December, which is the deadline I set when I started. Okay, gaming. Do you play Subnautica? I've tried, but deep water freaks me out royally, and I found that I simply couldn't continue after a while. See, while I'm pretty chill by nature, I do get startled quite easily, and by about 2 hours in, my nerves were completely shot, and my butt was starting to chew holes in my chair. So I had to abandon. Maybe I'll go back to it eventually. Next question. Favorite Space Marine Legion / chapter? Favorite 40k faction overall? See, I like 40k, but I don't know all that much about the Space Marines. I mostly play Tyrannid or Necron. If you had the choice to serve any Chaos Guard, who would you serve? I'd like to say Khorne because Khorne is cool, but I'd have to go with Slaanesh. Next up, do you have any plans on playing any other games and talking about them on the channel? Horror and everything else. Well, yeah, I would love to, but I'm not sure if there would be that much of an audience for it. On YouTube, gaming as a whole is pretty saturated, and we're talking about people who have decent audio, slick visuals, and a full editing team behind them, whilst I'm still at the trying to get my audio to not sound like complete arse stage. But never say never. What games would you even want me to cover though? Next. If you could have the special powers of a Primarch, e.g. yada yada yada, which one are you picking? To be honest, I like 40k, but not to this level, so I can't really answer that, but at my age, regeneration would be pretty damn nice. What are your thoughts on tower defense games? I love me some tower defense. I got into these way back in the days of Warcraft 3, where every second custom map was a tower defense. And over the years, I've played quite a few. I still play a few really good ones. Defense Grid and Defense Grid 2 are classics, as is Exmorph. But if I had to pick one to recommend, it would likely be something called Gemcraft Frostborn Wrath. This game is about as perfect as I think tower defense will ever get. Seriously, if you enjoy this genre and have never played Gemcraft, stop this video right now and go and buy it. It is transcendently good. As of late, I've been playing Riftbreaker, which is also frigging incredible. But that's more of a hybrid. It's somewhere between tower defense, open world base building, and survival. Still though, it was probably my game of the year last year. It's that good. Next up, thoughts on bullet hells. I used to enjoy Toho and Dodonpachi, but I've always been pretty bad at them. It's one of those things I prefer to watch than play. There's something about those patterns that's just sort of soothing. Do you play any mobile games? Not really. I do own a phone, but it's an ancient Galaxy, I think Galaxy 2, and it's used solely for watching movies on the bus, messaging Mrs. Owl, and taking photographs. I've never really been a cell phone person. Next up, what are your favorite video games? Will you do a gaming stream? Favorite games like of all time? Diablo 2, Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights, Dead by Daylight, God of War 2, One Must Fall 2097, MechWarrior 3, Path of Exile. I'm sure I could go on. As for gaming streams, it's a fun idea and one I'd be curious to try. You know what? Let's put a pin in that saying 15,000 subscriber milestone, or whenever Diablo 4 releases. Whichever comes first. Or, maybe Everspace 2, which I am completely obsessed with at present. It's coming out of early access next year, and this game is bloody amazing. Perhaps when I get my new rig. And onto the anime and manga section. How did your interest in manga begin? That's an interesting question. When I was in my mid-teens, my mum grabbed me something that she thought I would like from a comic book shop when she went on holiday to Cape Town. And it turned out to be a partially complete box set of Rurouni Kenshin. The voicing was weird, so I'm not sure if this was some sort of weird bootleg or what, but I frigging loved it. A couple of years later, Dragon Ball Z was huge, and I remember our entire dormitory, which included about half the university rugby team, piling into the common room to watch the next episode every single afternoon. And I guess that this in turn got me interested in other similar media. So I found a few movies like Vampire Hunter D and a few episodes of Naruto and Bleach floating around our university resnet, or I guess you would say intranet? What do you youngsters say these days? And this in turn led me to their respective mangas, as I wanted to see more, but our internet cap was just too low for us to download episodes of anything. And from here I found Gantz and Berserk, and these are the titles that cemented me as a manga fan for life. Later, of course, I moved to Japan, and believe it or not, I wasn't a weeb. This was for work. But once I had some of the language, it became way easier to be, well, a gigantic manga nerd. Anyway, next question. What's your favorite comic book storyline? Now, The asker specified both manga and Western comics, so let's do this in order. For manga, the Count arc in Berserk, the Osaka arc in Gantz, and I guess stuff like the first arc in Higurashi and the village arc in Made in Abyss were pretty damn great too. If we're talking shonen as well, I would have to throw the Arrancar arc from Bleach, and I guess maybe the Cell Saga from Dragon Ball Z on there too. For Western comics, No Man's Land or Nightfall for Batman, Time Runs Out for Marvel, and outside of these, maybe the Dangerous Habits run in Hellblazer would probably be my picks. Next question. If the Abyss was real and you were a cave raider, how far do you think you could make it? For the sake of this hypothetical, this would be your last dive with the intention of not coming back. I reckon I'd make it down pretty far, but I'd probably stay on layer 5. It's got a water crystal thing going on that I rather like, and there does seem to be plenty of food and potable water. Layer 6 is cool, but I'd probably wind up inside a turbinate dragon within a month. Next question. What manga do you really want to review the most? Ooh, that's a good question. The big three would probably be Gantz, Tokyo Ghoul, and Chainsaw Man, but unfortunately all three of these are showpro. I may attempt one when I'm in a risky frame of mind, but sadly geo-blocking doesn't seem to work how I thought it worked, and you can't even access it unless you're a big brand or something, I don't know. Bleh. I'd probably throw a few other manga on this list, but I do plan to do them in due course. Next question. If they would use a Cradle of Desire on you, what would the result be? Probably some malformed thing with wings, a keyboard for hands, and a gigantic beard that constantly poops hamburgers and money. Next up. If you were an anime character, who would you be? I'd like to say Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, or that bird guy from My Hero Academia. I always forget the name. But being honest, I'd probably wind up being Kei Kurono from Gantz. Next one. Do you like Junji Ito? What story do you like the best? Nah. I like Ito fine, but I do think that he's a bit overrated. Some people call him the Japanese Stephen King, and I think this is pretty apt, as, like King, his short stories can be bangers, but his longer stuff tends to be too ridiculous to be scary. And of his stories, my favorite one would probably be Amigara Fault. Next question. Anime or manga? Alright, let the war in the comments begin. I enjoy both, but I do find manga easier to deal with, as a lot of anime tend to be overly drawn out and stuffed with terrible filler arcs. Plus, I live with someone who has severe photosensitivity issues, and the flashing from my screen that anime often produces means I can only watch in daylight. That said, there are an odd few manga that aren't that good and have anime adaptations vastly superior to them, such as Gate and Black Clover. What got you into trauma manga / anime / games? Trauma? You mean disturbing? I have no idea. I've always been a bit of a sick puppy, going back to me first seeing Mortal Kombat at an arcade, and playing the shareware version of Doom when I was about 9. Okay, let's move on to YouTube related stuff. What tips do you have for new video makers? Anything that you should or should not do? As Nike would say, just do it. It's like writing or teaching. It's something you learn by doing. That said, if I had one piece of advice, it would be give your audio as much time as your video. It's much less fun to work with, and I know you want to skip right to editing, but audio is one of those things that people won't notice directly, but their brains will. And yes, I know my audio still sucks. Otherwise, yeah, what you put in time-wise is generally what you're going to get out. Also, don't cover anything by Shogakukan. How did you learn to analyze and realize details that go unnoticed? I'm not good at seeing beyond, so I have a certain fascination for the work you have on YouTube. I don't know. I overanalyze things sometimes. I do consume a lot of media, and Mrs. Owl and I love to have long, detailed conversations about what we're reading, generally with the purpose of trying to get the other one to read it too. But yeah, that's kind of a hard question to answer. Is there any particular reason you picked an owl as your avatar/online persona? This was actually asked quite a bit, but yeah, owls have really expressive faces, and there's something just innately comedic about them. I initially planned to do the animated avatar thing, which should become a reality in the not too distant future. But yeah, owls just kind of work well as an animated avatar due to how expressive they are. Next question. I will also accept an answer to Meguka Magica when, and they went on to clarify that they meant Madoka Magica. On one hand, it's yen press, so it's safe. On the other hand, the continuity of this thing is a bloody labyrinth. I'll have to say one day, as I do want to cover it, but it would be a job of work. I will say though, isn't it weird that the dark magical girl subgenre is at this point probably more prolific than actual magical girl stuff these days? Anyway, next question. Do you have any plans to cover ReZero Life in Another World? Between ReZero and Hoseki no Kuni, I'm not sure why people have so much interest in me covering these. But okay, let's just say that if I get 5,000 subscribers before the end of December, I've got something big planned. And we'll put a pin in that for the future. Are you doing a face reveal? Yeah, I could make a joke here, but I'll be honest, probably not. Like, maybe if I get 500,000 or something, but for now, it's unlikely. I do sort of value my anonymity, what there is of it, but the real reason is, well, let's just say I have a perfect face for radio. Seriously, I look like a fist with a beard. You're better off with the owl. Trust me on this. Next up, how did you start this channel? I think you mean why. Let's just say it's something that I've wanted to try for the past decade, and after I lost my job, I decided to give it a whack. I wish I'd started sooner, to be honest, as while it is a lot of work, I'm having a ton of fun. Okay, this next one had quite a few people ask, so let's call this a representative. Higurashi when. I have mentioned this before, but if I ever get 10,000 subscribers, I will do Higurashi. It is, on one hand, one of my favorite series of all time, but on the other hand, it's going to be a job of work to cover it properly. Just so much to talk about, both in terms of the story and in terms of the endless cultural references to things like Japanese urban legends and small town stuff. It's gonna be a banger of a series, but for the future. Of all the videos you have done, what one is your favorite? Ooh, that's a good one. Speaking objectively, Made in Abyss Part 7 turned out pretty damn well. Subjectively, I really like my Corpse Party series, and Corpse Party 3 is probably the strongest script I've ever written, but barely anyone saw it. Seriously, that series of videos was about as popular as an onion-flavoured sports drink. I'll probably hold off covering obscure stuff like that until I have a few more subscribers, because that was a lot of time invested with very little return. No, I'm not bitter. Next one is interesting. Do you tend to remember viewers? Yeah, absolutely. Not all of them, but I do recognize familiar faces as I go. That said, as I am growing, I am more likely to remember you from the Discord these days, so if you want to chit chat, that's probably where you want to go. Last one for YouTube stuff. Do you find it terrifying that enough people are interested in your thoughts and opinions that you could fill a small stadium with them? Not really. 3,000 is still tiny. Like, tiny. But I am committed to continuing with this pace of content production, and I am going to keep going until I either plateau or stagnate, or am forced to admit that this is not a viable concept for a channel. If you want to see me terrified about this stuff, talk to me again at like 50k. And that's the last of the YouTube stuff, so the next stuff will be more personal in nature. Okay, first up, how did you and Mrs. Owl meet? I was going to skip this one as it's a little too personal, but okay. Not going to get too specific naturally, but we were work friends for a while, and I had a thing for her after our first meeting. Then we circled around each other for about a year, with me taking that long to work up the testicular fortitude to ask her out. A few dates in, and we were working so damn well as a couple that we started talking about marriage, and we were married about a year after that. We've been married for almost a bloody decade now, and we are still utterly inseparable. She really is such a fantastic lady on every single level, and I hope that all of you manage one day to find a partner as great as her, or have already found one, whichever is applicable. Another owl question. Someone might have already asked it on another channel, but why an owl? Is it your favorite animal? And if so, for how long? Again, owls work well as avatars because they are innately comical and highly expressive. I guess I've always liked owls. They like flying cats. Not sure for how long. I know growing up I liked hawks and kestrels and other birds of prey, but yeah, owls would probably be my favorite animal. Next question. Do you speak a second language? Yeah, I speak a second, a third, and am studying a fourth. This next one is great. What was your strangest experience while teaching in Japan? Oh man, I've got just too many of these. But the first one that comes to mind was when I'd basically just arrived. During lunch break, I would walk down to a local supermarket and get some food and a drink, and then I would eat in the staff room, as I was not yet signed up for school lunches. I didn't really know what things were at that point, so I grabbed stuff that looked familiar. I bought some fried chicken, and a can of fizzy grape juice. Not a bad lunch, and I walked back in, sat down, and started eating. Chicken's good, take a few sips from the drink, and I go, wow, this tastes funny. I kept drinking it, and I realized that a lot of teachers were trying very hard to watch me without looking at me. So, one more sip, and it clicks, and I go, ah shit, this is booze. This is frigging booze. Yup. The brand new foreign teacher had walked into the staff room of the school with fried chicken in one hand and what was basically a wine cooler in the other hand, and in the middle of the school day was sitting there eating fried chicken and drinking booze with every evidence of enjoyment. Of course, nobody said a word to me, but I would overhear conversations about this incident for about 5 years thereafter. Yeah, Japan sells booze in grocery stores. It does not always look like booze. Beware. I've got plenty more, but we'll save those for another time. Next up, what's your favorite desert? Well, I probably enjoy the Namib most of all, as I went through it on ATVs with my family when I was younger. But hang on a second. Yalav? Oh, what's your favorite dessert? I understand. Okay, I've always wanted to try baked Alaska, but I've never had the chance. In reality, I am a sucker for anything sweet. Chocolate mousse, ice cream cake, yeah, I've got the taste buds of a 10-year-old. But if I had to pick one, it would either be tapioca or a specific flavor of ice cream that I've only ever encountered in Japan. It's called popping shower. I said popping shower, you weirdos. It tastes a bit like marzipan, and it has pop rocks in it. It is so good. Next up, what's your favorite dinosaur? This is an important question. Yes, it is. I've never been sure how to pronounce this, but Quetzalcoatlus? Sort of a fancy pterodactyl. Yeah, I like flying dinosaurs. My ancient ancestors. Next up, hey owl, have you ever been to a furry convention? No, honestly, I don't know too much about this subculture. This is something long after my time. From what I understand of it thus far, let me just say I don't have anything against furries or, well, anyone. I mean, you have fun however you want, as long as no one's getting hurt, but it's not my scene. Again, keep in mind, I grew up in an era where cell phones weren't really a thing yet, so it's a subculture I don't really know that much about. Next up, fav food to eat on takeout. Okay. For takeout? I'm guessing you mean favorite food to eat for takeout. Probably fried chicken, but I'm a bear for hamburgers and pizzas too. But yeah, fried chicken, and I know it's not exactly takeout, but I really enjoy street food too. Favorite food? Well, Mrs. Owl cooks stuff, so generally it's whatever she cooks, because about 90% of the dishes she's made have been frigging amazing. But as a snack, I would say biltong, and as a meal, probably a nice piece of ribeye, done medium, with some grilled onions, mushrooms, asparagus, a big old chunk of meat. Basically, I'm a carnivore by nature. Next one. Do you like any animals? That sounds weird, but alright. I grew up on and around farms. So yeah, I enjoy working with animals for the most part. It would be hard for me to name a specific favorite other than owls, and it's easier for me to say things I don't like. I'm not a fan of animals, well, insects, that can get out of my field of vision and then sting me or Mrs. Owl. And in terms of pets, I had a pet rat growing up that was just the best pet ever, and I've always kind of wanted a ferret, although I worry about the smell. Next question. What are your phobias? So, what are you scared of? This was asked by a surprising number of people too, and it's actually tricky to answer because I don't really have many. Really deep water, maybe. Sort of being out in the middle of the ocean, really deep down, and there could be anything out there in the blackness. I don't like flying, and I also really do not like driving. I've had a number of terrible experiences involving cars that have transformed me into one of life's confirmed pedestrians. Other than that, I'm not really sure. Next one. Boxers or briefs? Neither. That's really hard to say. How old are you? How old are you? Okay. A bit personal. I am middle-aged, but trust me, I feel older. You'll get there. Are you furry? Well, I do need a shave, but no, I'm not. What's a deeply traumatic memory you have related to media that occasionally returns to your mind? Ooh. Well, okay. When I was quite young, I used to watch the RoboCop cartoon on Saturday mornings. So, for some reason, my mother thought that renting me RoboCop 2 would be a great idea. I was about 7. That movie traumatized me for quite some time. I also watched Poltergeist at a similar age, and that movie scared the crap out of me. Although, now that I think about it, it also made me really love horror stories. And the last question was honestly so interesting that I thought I would give it its own little section. Right here. It's a bit long, but this one, let's take a look. I remember vividly picking up Battle Royale as a middle schooler and loving it, being constantly very befuddled by just how much of a focus there was on friendship groups and cliques, and their loyalties to each other, and the dynamics within, and even more so insistence of professing one's love for one's crush. Understandably, you might want to tell someone how you feel, but you're in a death game, and time and place, people. That said, as you got into anime manga at whatever point in your life, what would you say was the most bizarre or unique trope that you found to be uniquely attached to horror manga or anime? And subsequently, what tropes do you adore that's unique to anime or manga? Sorry, yeah, I'm a dick. And which ones could you definitely live without? That is a really bloody great question. I could talk for hours about the different tropes within anime and manga, and these tend to be an interesting mix of Japanese cultural referrers, mythological and religious tales, and also some stuff that's very unique to anime and manga, and in turn bound to unique genres and subgenres within anime and manga. Some anyone will recognize. The fact that almost any isekai protagonist will be an impossibly good-hearted but unappreciated tabula rasa who dies via a sudden and horrific fashion at the start of the story, and this trope even has a name, Truck-san, which makes me laugh. Or how about the fact that any what-the-fuckalypse story will have a main or secondary party member get partially infected and thus get the powers of whatever they're fighting. Yeah, I could go on. Tropes I adore. I love transformations and I love power creep, especially when they feel at least somewhat earned and allow the story to go snooker loopy with its enemies later. I love the trope of the best frenemy where a powerful opponent becomes an anti-hero, semi-protagonist, and rival. Yeah, a lot of it is really cheesy, but I guess a part of me will always be 12 years old and still smashing my G.I. Joes together. Tropes I dislike. I'm not a fan of the bland pretty boy protagonist that tends to crop up in shonen, but I like the good-natured doofus trope even less. I also dislike the trope of using rape, death, or kidnapping of the primary love interest as a cheap way to raise the stakes, and I'm also not a fan of the epilogue trope of, hey, we've been fighting together for a while, let's get married. Forced happy ending. But I guess this one exists in Western media too. Okay, I am going to end this here, as this video is already substantially longer than I anticipated, but this may be a topic that I return to as a full video down the line, as, well, it's a really great one. And that's that, I guess. I want to give a huge thanks to Astrixic Gaming, Rage Against My Hairline, Cheerful Satanist, Bourrier, Rafferty, and Crazy, my amazing patrons. Seriously, you folks are just the best. And I also want to say thanks to everyone else, viewers, subscribers, and the great chaps and chapettes on our Discord. It's been a blast thus far, and I am looking forward to growing this thing together. Cheers, take care, and... Wait, did you hear something? Oh, I see. Well, that is a big teaser for the next manga we're going to be doing. It's going to be a big one, but you'll see it when you see it. Cheers, take care my friends, and I will see you next time. This is the Owl, signing off.